Well, we said Gonzaga was underrated, and apparently we didn't know just how right we were.
You are Locked On College Basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? Welcome into the Locked On College Basketball Podcast, the only daily national college hoop show out there. It is now no longer opening day unless you're still on the Pacific Coast or I guess Hawaii maybe, I don't know, because in the East Coast Central Time Zone and Mountain, it's election day, baby. Let's get after it. We're here with you, Andy Patton and Isaac Schade, coming at you live about 30 minutes after the end of the Gonzaga beatdown of Baylor. And folks, you're joining us at the place to get your college basketball content every single day. Thanks for making us your first listen or watch. We want to remind you, you can catch every episode ad-free on Amazon Music. Special shout out to all the everydayers joining us, sickos like us, late and live and still awake, and of course, all the members of the Locked On College Basketball Discord. Hopefully, there's still some West Coasters up late hanging out with us. Andy, this episode's brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Andy Patton, Isaac Schade with you. It was a wild ride on opening day of college basketball. Started in South Dakota, I think at, what was it, Andy, noon Eastern time, and finished up at about, like 1:30 Eastern time a.m. on Tuesday. So it has been a wild ride. Gonzaga pummels Baylor. 4 SEC teams went down, Andy. Multiple freshmen showed out. Some others didn't. Some other big storylines, some other upsets. But college hoops is back, and we're so excited to get into it. No place other to start than the top 10 showdown that ended the night. Thanks a lot, Monday Night Football, which went into overtime. But I did have Kareem Hunt on my fantasy team, so I'll take that touchdown to wrap up that game. Gonzaga, 101-63 over Baylor. Andy Patton, how did this come together as the Zags exercise a few demons from that 21 national championship game?
Yeah, Gonzaga's won a lot of opening games by 38 points, but I don't think they've done it against a top 10 team. But this was just from the jump. Gonzaga got out to an 8-1 lead. I think Baylor came back and took the lead, and then Gonzaga took it back from them and never, ever let up. Was up 19 at halftime, win this thing by 38. Just an absolutely dominant performance. And coming into the game, some of the big storylines that we kind of knew might favor Gonzaga in this one. Obviously, the game was at the Spokane Arena, so it was not a true home game for Gonzaga, but it was a very, very pro-Zag crowd. Gonzaga returned 7 of their 8 key rotation pieces from last year. They add Caliph Battle and Michael Ajayi. We knew this team was going to be very good. We knew that they had that continuity, and we knew Baylor, they had 4 starters who were new this year. They bring in some really talented pieces. Norchad Omier was good in this game. Jeremy Roach comes in from Duke. VJ Edge comes a talented freshman. But we knew it was going to take them maybe some time to find the pieces and fit them all together. And that's really what came together in this game. Baylor did not play well. They did not shoot it well. It was a very poor offensive night. They looked confused and listless defensively at times. Gonzaga just picked them apart. They tried to double in the post, and Gonzaga quickly got the ball out to open shooters. They abandoned that. They tried to go zone. That didn't work. Like, you could just tell that Scott Drew's team still's got some work to do, still got some things to figure out. But Gonzaga had significant depth issues last year. That was their biggest problem. They didn't really have a backup point guard. Ryan Nembhard frequently played 39, 40 minutes, and they just didn't have the depth to run at the pace they like to run at. That is not going to be an issue for the team this year. Their bench had 35 points combined in this one on 17 of 25 shooting, an incredibly efficient night from Gonzaga's backups. Dusty Stromer, 11.6 assists and 4 rebounds on 3 of 5 shooting from beyond the arc. Braden Huff, the backup center for Graham Ike, he played a lot in the first half with Ike picking up some early fouls. Huff finishes with 14.6 rebounds on 7 of 11 shooting. Michael Ajayi came off the bench. A lot of people thought he was going to start. Instead, the Zags start Caliph Battle. They bring Ajayi off the bench. He finishes with 9 points, 8 boards on 4 of 5 shooting. Gonzaga's best NBA prospect, a guy many people thought was going to get drafted last year, is coming off the bench. That is scary, scary news for the rest of college basketball, and they put a lot of people on notice with this game.
Andy, was that I wanted to ask you about that with the starting five. I can't remember what your final starting five projection was. Were you in line with what Coach Few did, or did you have it flipped?
No, I expected Ajayi and Ben Gregg to both start, and that Caliph Battle would come off the bench, and they play a bit of a bigger lineup. But Battle started both the exhibition games. Now, one of them he started in place of Nolan Hickman, which I think most people expected wasn't going to be how it actually happened this year. And then in one of those games, I think he started in place of Ben Gregg in the other game. I'm not sure. But either way, we kind of knew that Mark Few was maybe shielding what his starting lineup was going to be from Scott Drew. And he comes out with a new starting lineup in this game. I'm curious if it sticks. I think it probably will. I always thought Battle would be the guy to come off the bench because he's only started like 30 of his 100 career games. So he's kind of used to coming off the bench. But either way, the Zags got an embarrassment of riches in that backcourt.
Andy, one of the things that stuck out to me for Gonzaga in this game, dominated the boards 45-32 over Baylor. But what was interesting with that is no single player had more than 8 rebounds for Gonzaga. Ike had 8, as did Ajayi. You had multiple. Hickman had 6, 5 each for Nembhard and Caliph Battle. All 5 starters had at least 3 rebounds, and Dusty Stromer had 6 himself. And so you had 6 different Gonzaga Bulldogs with 5 or more rebounds. That sort, when you don't have a Drew Timme or a Chet Holmgren, that sort of all-in approach on the boards is, I just think, one little bit of what's going to make this Gonzaga team so special.
Well, I'll tell you what, Michael Ajayi, Mark Few said that he believes Michael Ajayi is the best rebounder they've ever had. Michael Ajayi is a 6'7" small forward. And Gonzaga's had good rebounding, like guard wings in the past. Joel Ayayi, not related, the similar name, was one of the best rebounding guards Gonzaga's ever had. But for Few to come out and say, yeah, Ajayi is the best we've ever had, he doesn't say that very often. He's not a very hyperbolic guy. And watching this game and watching the exhibition games for Gonzaga, I get why he's saying what he's saying. This dude is so tough. He's so physical. He has a nose for the basketball. Like somebody in my mentions on Twitter kind of compared him to Kenneth Faried, and I kind of like that comparison for him. Just tough, physical, hard-nosed guy. And he was relentless going after the ball. And so for Gonzaga to be able to rebound at all 5 spots, Ryan Nembhard's not going to be a great rebounder just because of his size, but ultimately this team can't, they punished Baylor in the zone by getting a lot of offensive rebounds. Graham Ike had 5 of his 8 boards on the offensive side. And it just, the ability of this team to rebound as well as they did. It's just one of many things. Their defense was what really impressed me more than anything else. Baylor shot 37% from the field in this one. They shot 3 of 21 from 3, and sure, some of them were open looks that they missed, but there was just a really good tenacity from Gonzaga on that end of the floor, which was a concern for this team. And Ken Pom had him 45th in adjusted defensive efficiency. As you and I know, we talk about this a lot. To be a championship caliber contender, you got to be quite a bit better than that. You got to be in the top 25 at least. Going into the tournament, you got to be in the top 30, and Gonzaga is going to take a big jump after this game. And they went a lot better on that end than I thought.
You want to guess where it is? Because he's already updated it.
32.
25.
25. Yeah, I guess if you hold a top 10 team to 63 points, that's going to do it, huh?
Yeah. The Ken Pom overall rankings now are Houston 1, Gonzaga 2, Duke 3 after night 1.
Yeah.
So interesting stuff there. Andy, for Gonzaga, I don't think there's much more to say right now because of how impressive this has been. They do move on to face Arizona State. I believe that was that Saturday afternoon. And then, but for Baylor, they look at this and it's like, all right, we just had this experience. Andy, you and I were talking about beforehand that on a day when a whole bunch of freshmen showed out, VJ Edgecombe wasn't really it. He had a couple nice plays here and there, but kind of meaningless in some ways. And like where there are some teams around the country that aren't going to have to rely on their freshmen, Baylor needs VJ Edgecombe to be an absolute dude. And he goes 2 of 11 from the field in this game, 0 of 3 from 3. and is going to need to be able to do more if they're going to do everything they want to be able to do.
Yeah, he was 1 of 10 before throwing down an absolutely ferocious dunk on Gonzaga walk-on Joe Few, Mark Few's son, who valiantly attempted to stop the shot. If you guys can imagine what Joe Few's son might look like, considering Mark Few's about 5'5", Joe didn't have much of a chance here, but he jumped, he defended it, and is going to be on a poster for the rest of his life because Edgecombe just ended him. But he was 1 of 10 before that. I mean, he's a kid who you could see the athleticism, you could see the raw potential, but that the raw was the key word. He drove into traffic a lot of times. He had the ball stripped away from him. He threw up some shots that were pretty ugly. Like, he's really raw, and it stands out on a day where Cooper Flagg and Con Knipple and Derek Queen from Maryland and Trey Johnson at Texas. I mean, a lot of these freshmen looked amazing. We're going to talk about that a little later in the show, but Edgecombe was one of the most notable freshmen to really not look the part. And again, he played a much better team than every other one of those players did. And I think that clearly needs to be factored in, and he will play a much better team again on Saturday when Baylor takes on Arkansas. And it's Scott Drew's strategy, trial by fire, get this kid ready. And for Baylor, even if it takes Edgecombe a little bit of time, Jeremy Roach is going to be better than this. He was 2 of 9 in this game. Jaden Nunn was 3 of 8. They didn't have Langston Love. He was unavailable for this team. Outside of Jalen Celestine, who shot 2 of 5 from 3, Baylor as a team, 1 of 16. It was a horrendous shooting night for the Bears. That's not going to continue to happen. I'm not overly concerned about this team long term, but like you said, they're relying on Edgecombe a lot, and he doesn't look like he's there yet.
And to the point you just made there, Andy, Devin Morrison in the chat asked the question, given the incredibly horrible performance from Baylor, bad shooting, bad defense, poor chemistry, and then tacked on later in the chat, bad rebounding as well, was Baylor overrated to start the season? Andy, I think you said it right. Look, it's night 1. Yes, it is a high-level matchup, and you think this team's going to show up. But this is what happens at the beginning of the season. We're taking a wait-and-see approach with this. But as Andy also said, Baylor now has to turn around and on Saturday play Arkansas in Texas as one of 2 ranked games on Saturday. And so I think we will learn a little more then. I expect a bounce back from Scott Drew's team because Scott Drew teams win and compete.
Baylor, I'm a little worried about their front court depth, although their 2 starters in the front court played really well in this game. But I think that's an issue for this team. Rob Wright, their freshman guard, he was phenomenal off the bench. There's clearly talent on this team. They will put it together. I think they will end the season as a top 10 team, just like they are right now. But if they play similarly like to this and get beat by 15, 20, 25 points by Arkansas, they're gonna move down quite a bit in the polls, and justifiably so. But we'll see what kind of bounce back they can potentially have here against this Arkansas team. But
all right, go.
I was gonna say, we're talking SEC teams, and 4 of them lost on Monday. That is not something we expected to see. 4 SEC teams taking losses on night 1, including a ranked Longhorns team to an unranked Ohio State team. We're going to talk about that game and whether we're concerned about the Longhorns coming up here in just a second. But first, our friends at Roy. It is time to recognize the Roy Player of the Week. So far this season, we've pooled over $20,000 to support players on Roy. Micro deposits lead to massive change. And with the Roy app, you can direct your support to the athletes you love, ensuring that all funds go to the specific player you choose. Unlike collectives, you know exactly where your support is going, and you even receive exclusive content like personal videos and updates after the season. The best part, it's risk-free. If the athlete transferred or doesn't deliver the content, you get your money back. This week, we're supporting Boise State running back Ashton Gianti. He had 31 carries for 149 yards and a pair of touchdowns. That's just like an average day for Gianti, the way he's been playing this year for the Broncos. We just pitched in $100. I'd love for you all to join us. Even $10 makes a difference. Let's show Ashton the love and keep him connected to the school. Remember, pay today, celebrate tomorrow. Your support sets your team up for success. Plus, don't miss out on Roy's exciting giveaway. Win 2 tickets to a game in November. Just download Roy, create an account, and enter referral code LOCKEDON, and you're entered. If you're already on Roy, any contribution to an athlete's campaign also gets you entered automatically. No purchase necessary, void where prohibited. Download right now and join the NIL game with no subscriptions and no fees. And be sure to check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and X at Roy_return_on_you for more information. Roy, support the players, change the game. All right, Isaac, 4 SEC teams going down on Monday. We kind of talked in our preview episode about how 2 teams were willing to go out and play true road games for their first game of the season. Shout out to Buzz Williams at Texas A&M. Shout out to Dennis Gates at Missouri for doing that. Unfortunately, it did not result in either of those teams picking up a victory. We'll talk about Mizzou losing to Memphis. We'll talk about A&M losing to Central Florida. Pretty heartbreaking loss for them. But we do want to start with Texas, the Longhorns, the 19th ranked team in the country, falling to Ohio State. Now, they did not have Tremont Mark in this game. But Isaac, one of the things that we talked about a lot with this Texas team coming into the season in our team preview and our SEC conference preview was this is a team that doesn't have a lot of depth. And there was some significant concern about whether they could withstand something like this with Tremont Mark not playing. And they go down 80-72 to Ohio State, a team that shot 14 of 28 from 3. Massive, massive performance for Jake Diebler's team, but showing off some of those concerns we had about these Longhorns coming into the year.
That's exactly right, Andy. And you know, it's Kendall Weaver that moves into the starting lineup in Tremont Mark's place. But it shows up, right? Like teams have to have this depth to be able to compete, especially as we start looking season long and at the SEC in particular and how good it's going to be. And multiple other Longhorns did what they needed to do. Notably, freshman Trey Johnson, who went off. We sung his praises ahead of this game. 29 points, 10 of 20 from the floor, 5 of 10 from the 3, 4 of 5 from the free throw line, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal, and a block. Andy, what a, like, what's up, America? Here I am. I'm going from Trey Johnson. Unfortunately, though, it's all in a losing cause as Arthur Kaluma pitches in 10, Caden Shedrick pitches in 10. But there wasn't much from any other Longhorns, and that's the problem. Just 5 points from Jordan Pope. I expect, and they need more from him. Weaver filling in 8 points, 8 rebounds. That's solid. But again, you're going to need more. It can't be relying on Trey Johnson to drop a 30-piece every night. And obviously, Andy, let's recognize how much that calculus changes with Tremont Mark back, right? Like he is that level of offensively good. But you got to be able to do it when he's not available. There were other, like Grand Canyon, missing Tyon Grant Foster. They still found a way to win on Monday night. So I don't want to explain that away. But, Andy, I do want to look at Ohio State. This is a team that I can't remember your thoughts on them, but I've been higher on Ohio State than I think a lot of people are. I feel like they're going to be in contention. And what's crazy to me about this is we've talked so much about the 2 blue blood transfers coming in, Aaron Bradshaw from Kentucky, Sean Stewart from Duke. They scored a combined 4 points in this game, Andy. It came from other sources, and I think that's what's so interesting to me about what Ohio State was able to do to Texas in Las Vegas.
Yeah, to me, I think that's a big part of this game. And one of the things I like about this Ohio State roster is that they have this kind of combination of young, higher upside, high risk, high reward players that they add in the transfer portal, like Sean Stewart, like Aaron Bradshaw. And then they have kind of a mix of healthy veteran guys, returners like Bruce Thornton, who had a monster game here, 20 points, 5 boards, 5 assists, 7 of 10. That Micah Parrish was a really nice addition for them in the transfer portal, a guy that you feel you can rely on and know that he's going to give you good minutes. He had 17 in this one. And so they can beat a top 20 team in Texas with their front court guys who we're expecting to get better as the year goes on. They're not going to combine for 4 points very often this season. They're going to be better than that. But you can still win a game without them doing that. And that's kind of a proof of how this team is well constructed, and Diebler's ready to lead this team. I think they're going to be good. But, just speaking quickly on the Texas side, I think Trey Johnson had the best freshman performance of any of the other freshmen in the country. And I know Derek Queen's stats are better. And I know there was other really high profile performances, but Trey Johnson did it on an undermanned Texas team against a team that I expect will be in the top 25 many weeks this season. For him to drop a 30 burger nearly against a team like Ohio State, that's more impressive to me than what Cooper Flagg did. That's more impressive to me than Con Knippel and all those other guys. And if he's this caliber of player, once Jordan Pope figures it out, once Tremont Mark is healthy, there's a still possibility this Texas team is good, but that depth is going to have to get better. Those Indiana state transfers have to be better. Like there's still some concern about this team, but boy, Trey Johnson is going to be a dude this year.
That makes me happy. Andy, let's talk about these two true road games situations where Texas A&M goes to Central Florida. They're up like 9 with 4 minutes left. I saw a stupid deep three from Wade Taylor IV, but UCF just keeps chipping, winds up with a 64-61 victory. Mizzou goes on the road to Memphis FedEx Forum. We learned earlier on Monday.
Yeah.
Look, the Memphis carousel, dude, it's just always spinning, and it's so insane. Tyreek Smith is entering the transfer portal. It's a he said with Penny Hardaway about what's actually going on here. I don't even want to speculate on it right now, other to say than it's quintessentially Memphis at this point for what happened. The problem, though, for Mizzou is that they can't take advantage of it. Yeah. The Missouri, I almost said the Tigers. The Missouri Tigers are up 10 at halftime. Memphis comes back and is able to take this game. Glad for Memphis to see that Musa Cisse was able to play. He hadn't played at all in the preseason. Comes off the bench, 14 points, 7 boards, an assist, a steal, and 2 blocks in 19 minutes. But the dude of this game is PJ Haggerty, Andy, who went off, had 25 points.
Yeah, it was a fun pair of games here. Texas A&M, I mean, I've been concerned about their shooting, and that really showed up here. I mean, the last possession of the game, they had 3 opportunities. 3 shots from 3 that would have tied this game, missed all 3 of them. They got the 2 offensive boards, but couldn't knock that thing in. They finished this game barely over 30% from the 3-point line. And even beyond that, I mean, Solomon Washington was 3 of 10 in this game just from the field. Like, he didn't have a good game at all. And I worry about this Texas A&M offense. And I think there's a chance that Central Florida is just better than we think that they are. I mean, I think this is a decent team. They won some big games last year. There's very real opportunity for them to continue to win some big games this year, and they picked up a nice one here. But, yeah, I'm a little worried about A&M. For Mizzou, yeah, I think that's just an issue of their team not gelling yet. I think that they'll be better as the year goes on. They were up 10 at halftime and just really got scorched in the second half by a Haggerty who had 22 of his 25 points in that second half. The team shot about 60% from the field. Musa Cisse was great. Penny's team's going to be fine, but no Tyreek Smith really hurts their depth at the 4. They're going to rely heavily on Cisse and Dane Danger in the front court. They got some junior college guys who might be able to fill in at the power forward spot, but without Tyreek Smith, I'm not sure how Memphis is going to be able to compete at the level that they want to be. But hey, they picked up a nice win over an SEC team on night 1, so shout out to them for that.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of AAC teams smiling a little happy front court smile on Monday, Andy. Yeah, Memphis scores 51 in the second half. Crazy stuff. Well, that's 3 of the SEC teams lost. We said there was a 4th. That's South Carolina. The Cox go down on Monday as well. They took a loss. A handful of other surprises on night 1, but we had some standout performances. And, Andy, it was a good night in the Bluegrass State. Come on, Louisville. Please be good and win double-digit games this year. But Mark Pope's debut was a great start as well. We're going to get to all of that and more in just a second. Right after I tell you about Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink, which is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works, Andy. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in your gut. It's that byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for the rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme, and what it does is breaks down that byproduct. Just remember, though, to take that Z-Biotics and make it your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and then you're going to feel your best tomorrow. Here's the steps. Boom. 1, 2, 3. Number 1, drink pre-alcohol for best results. Again, make it your first drink of the night. Step 2, drink responsibly. Pace yourself. Hydrate and get a good night's sleep. And step 3, then enjoy tomorrow. Wake up feeling refreshed and ready to take on the day. Go to zbiotics.com/lockedoncollege to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On College at checkout. Z-Biotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/lockedoncollege and use code lockedoncollege at checkout for 15% off. All right, Andy Patton, Isaac Schade here with you. Boom, as we get into segment 3 of opening night of college basketball. We are live with you. And Andy, just want to start off this last segment by just mentioning we talked in our preview of Monday's games about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Robbie Avila, who goes with his head coach Josh Schertz from Indiana State. It's our second Indiana State mention on the show. How do you know about that? To St. Louis. St. Louis was playing Santa Clara, a veteran, experienced team as part of the Field of 68 tip-off. And unfortunately, Robbie Avila goes out in this game with a lower body injury, had his right ankle wrapped up. St. Louis made a good push despite that in this game, but obviously our big concern is getting Rex Specs himself healthy, and so we're going to have to keep our eyes on that. Andy, let's go to this other SEC upset where South Carolina falls at home to North Florida. Yikes.
Yeah, this was an ugly one. North Florida out rebounds South Carolina 43-37. They shoot 10 of 29 from 3 in this one. Just a really strong performance from North Florida and some concern. Lamont Paris's team was a 6 seed last year. They were a surprise in college basketball. He was one of the best coaches of the entire year. I think he won awards at the end of the season, and yet they get outscored by 8 in the second half and fall here in the first game of the season at home. Colin Murray Boyles, was excellent, 17.7 boards for him. But outside of that, the rest of this team just did not look very good. There's some real concern. This team shot 56% from the free throw line. Hopefully it's just an early season aberration against a team that was, that got hot from the outside and took a win here. But there's South Carolina was not projected to be as good this year as they were last year. And obviously last year they exceeded their expectations in a major way. But we'll see. This seems like a rather auspicious start after such a promising season last year. We'll see if South Carolina can right the ship, but not a great way to get it going.
I thought auspicious was a good thing. Isn't it inauspicious when it's bad?
Yes, inauspicious. Yeah, you're right. It's still late over here in the Pacific Northwest. So give me a little break there.
Whatever. I'm in Central Time. It's 1:30 for me right now.
That's fair. That's fair. I'll give you that.
Anyway, we're just using big dictionary words. It doesn't matter. Andy, the other thing, as we've talked about the SEC maybe getting up to double-digit teams in the NCAA tournament, that's a big blow potentially for that as we get to looking at resumes later in the season. Speaking of which, McNeese, who is under Will Wade, one of the mid-major darlings of this season, along with Grand Canyon and a handful of others, they fall to San Diego State on opening day. South Dakota State. Now I'm messing up. What did I say?
You said San Diego State, which wouldn't be as bad of a loss.
That would be a very respectable loss. Yes, they fall to South Dakota State, the Jackrabbits, not the Aztecs. 80-73. McNeese, for them, this is a crushing blow to their resume. And one of the things about college basketball is you have all these opportunities, but for mid-major teams, some of these opportunities are more critically important than others. And unfortunately for McNeese, this one comes on opening day. For South Dakota State, they get transfer Oscar Clough, who has a 14-14 game. Really nice double-double there for the Jackrabbits. We will watch what they do. But Andy, I know a lot of people are here to talk about the Bluegrass State because Kentucky and Louisville, while they don't like to be combined, I'm going to combine them because those two schools combined to score 196 points on Monday. Kentucky beating Wright State 103-62. Louisville beating Morehead State, who I think is a solid team, 93-45. For Kentucky, the big story was Otega Oweh dropping 21 points, Andy. And perhaps my favorite scene of this game was after it was over, just seeing the Kentucky team gather around Mark Pope and just dance and jump with joy. It is so clear how all in they are for their head coach and how happy they are for him to get back to his alma mater and kick things off with a dub.
Yeah, great performances for both these teams. Oweh was awesome. Amari Williams had a double-double. Kobe Brea didn't even touch the rim on his 18 points. I'm pretty sure he was a smooth operator for the Wildcats from beyond the arc. But Louisville really impressed me here as well. They had just 5 turnovers as a team. When you're talking about a new unit, entirely new players in a new system, to only turn the ball over 5 times. They also helped force 20 turnovers for Morehead State, held them to just 45 points, 23% from the field. This Louisville team was excellent defensively. Again, when we know a little bit more about Morehead State, maybe they're a team that we had maybe inflated expectations for, but this is a phenomenal win for Pat Kelsey's team. Cason Pryor, 18 and 12 off the bench, 4 assists and 3 steals from him. Just some really solid. Javon Hadley, the transfer from Colorado, had 15. Terrence Edwards Jr., the transfer from James Madison, had 12. Rain Smith comes off the bench to score 12 as well. Just a really balanced attack from this Louisville team. They had a really, really good performance defensively, 12 steals, like we said, the 20 turnovers for the Eagles. So I'm very optimistic about both Louisville and Kentucky and the direction these programs are going right now under their new coaches.
Andy, the Cason Pryor performance isn't surprising to me. What is surprising was that he came off the bench.
Yeah, me too.
Was not expecting that, but apparently it didn't matter because he lit it up. And man, I'm just so happy for Louisville to be good. I want it to be real, and I want it to keep happening because it's been just sad. It's been sad, Andy. Yeah. Okay, lots of freshmen. We've talked about Trey Johnson, who blew up. We talked about VJ Edgecombe, who we were disappointed with. Multiple other freshmen had big games. Andy, it was a proud night for me on Monday because do you remember what my first bold prediction was in our bold prediction show last week?
You predicted that Cooper Flagg would not lead Duke in scoring.
That's right. Who did I predict would lead Duke in scoring?
You predicted that Con Knippel would lead Duke in scoring.
Who led Duke in scoring on Monday night?
I have a feeling that it was Con Knippel.
It was Con Knippel. And so bold prediction satisfied. They're not going to play any more games this year because they want to make me no, I'm just kidding. Look, what a great thing for Duke, who you look at it and you expect like, oh, Cooper Flagg's the man, and he is, but to have somebody to be able to be like a Robin to his Batman, to be able to do it, like Con Knippel looks all sorts of legit with what he's going to be able to do. So really interesting showing from Knippel, 22 points, 8 of 14 shooting, 3 of 8 from deep. Really interesting stuff there. And Andy, the other one really big that I want to point out that you mentioned his name earlier was Derek Queen, who had 22 and 20 for Maryland in his debut. I know that they were very high on him, and boy, did he live up to expectations.
Yeah, he was fantastic. First freshman to do that in their first game since Michael Beasley in 2007. Michael Beasley, one of the most dominant college basketball players that we've seen in this century, quite honestly. He was that good. And those are big shoes for Derek Queen to fill, but really good start for him, 22 and 20. I want to shout out Flory Bedinga as well from Kansas. We weren't really sure how much he was even going to play for this team, just with Hunter Dickinson and KJ Adams and just the amount of talent. And there were some oddities with Kansas. AJ Storr didn't play very much. David Coit started over him. We're going to be kind of monitoring what Bill Self and this Jayhawks team does, but Flory Bedinga scores 13 and 8 on 6 of 6 shooting for the Jayhawks. He was a fantastic rim runner. He looked really, really good in this game. And if he continues to be that level of talent off the bench for this Bill Self team, there's a reason that they're in the top 5 of everybody's preseason rankings. They looked good and deep and talented, even when they didn't get some performances from some of their transfers in this game. Ooh. Folks, want to thank you all so much for staying up with us, for hanging out with us here live in this first day of the season recap here for Locked On College Basketball. Hopefully we'll get a chance to do some more of these. Hopefully they won't be quite as late, but we got, like you said, we got Monday Night Football to thank for that. That's not going to be going on for too much longer, so we'll get through that part of the season. We got some really fun stuff coming your way. We got some more great games later this week as well. We talked about a few of them, some really fun matchups. Carolina at Kansas. We got Baylor and Arkansas, Tennessee and Louisville. We got some really fun stuff coming your way later this week. We'll preview those games. We'll review them after we get to them. Really excited to be here in the first week of the season. Folks, thank you so much for making the show your first listen, your first watch of the day. And as always, apologies to the Lawyer family and apologies to Duke. To Purdue, we did not get to them today because they managed to win the game that it looked like they were struggling with into the second half. Let's go Wildcats. Big shout out to Kentucky there at the end of the show. And until tomorrow, as always, peace out.